Today, for example, lots of people confuse the concept of food security and food sovereignty. And I'll distinguish the two, and we'll see why it's so important to be focused on prioritizing food sovereignty. Food security is a concept, it's actually a dangerous colonial and post-colonial concept that was introduced to us in the 1950s and 60s. Because in the colloquial sense of the term, who doesn't like food security? It's a good thing. Of course we want food security.
Security.
Yes, but it's a technical term. It's not a colloquial term that means the following. It means you secure the caloric nutrition of your people, either by producing the food yourself or by buying it from abroad, which is what we do, or even worse, by borrowing money to buy it from abroad, which is part of the debt trap, or even worse, by receiving it as food aid. Food aid is the worst thing you can do to your farmers. They can't compete with free food coming from abroad. And that's precisely what happened in the 1950s and 60s. To deal with that disruption, when farmers gave up producing corn and wheat, we actually had shortages, mini famines across the continent. And to fix those mini famines for countries that didn't have cash immediately to buy food, we received food aid. And that was the final nail in the coffin of our food sovereignty. And that means now the priority is we produce coffee and tea and tobacco and bananas for exports, get dollars, and then import the wheat and corn and barley and the rice from the major subsidized producers. I'll give you one indication that this is not a coincidence. If you go to France, one of the major European producers of core crops, you look at the name of the Ministry of Agriculture. It's called Ministry of Agriculture and Food Sovereignty, not food security. The French Minister of Agriculture, during the food price disruption that happened after the Ukraine conflict, he was touring all the French media, radio and TV, reassuring the public about the situation. He's telling them, I don't want you to worry about our food situation. It's a temporary disruption. We'll deal with it because we've invested in our food sovereignty since the 1960s. I want you to worry about our African friends who don't have food security. Immediately switches from food sovereignty for France, food security for Africans. And it makes perfect sense because from a European perspective, if we as Africans start investing in our own food sovereignty, then we become competitors with the major producers in Europe. But that's not, advantageous to them. So it makes perfect sense from a European Union perspective that they don't invest in our food sovereignty, but they should invest in our food security. And it's incumbent upon us as Africans to invest